well, you're just blaming the person. I'm not blaming anyone. The problem is that who just canceled their WFG life insurance policies? Well, I'm going to cover that in today's Reddit post review, which you can see right here. It says, just canceled our WFG life insurance policies. Whoa, what is that all about? Well, attrition is a part of any business, and that's just turnover, right? Whether it's employees, switching jobs, switching companies, switching roles, retirement, getting fired, let go, whatever it is, on top of, from a consumer standpoint, switching to a competitor, stopping with what you're doing. It happens, right? It happens. When people feel ignored or are not getting the value out of what they originally purchased, they oftentimes can switch or cancel what they have. Part of that is education. Part of that is, maybe what their perceptions and beliefs are. But, we're going to dive into that a little bit today. And I'm going to cover that, provide a reasonable response, provide the other side, because this is an anti-MLM Reddit post. I like to provide a more reasonable approach that looks like, more neutral pro-MLM things as well, because the anti-MLM is clearly one-sided. All right, so this person says, feels good, man. All one word there. Background: 4 years ago, I mentioned to a friend that I wanted to get around to buying life insurance. Husband and I have 2 kids and a mortgage, and I would rest easier knowing that if one of us got smoked by some texting teenager in a pickup, dang, that's an interesting way to say it, the other wouldn't be left staring down 6 figures of debt. Wow, all right. Friend perks up. Actually, I just joined this group that does that. Yada, yada, yada. She and her mentor come right to my house, and before talking about insurance at all, mentor immediately tries to recruit me. All right, so this is more of a traditional network marketing approach that leads with the business opportunity and is focusing on recruiting and selling. The company I'm with and my approach is more leading with powerful products, teaching and sharing. And so it's a different approach, knowing that most people just are customers in a network marketing business model. And when I say most, it's typically, some 80, 90%. And it depends on what statistic you're looking at and what year you're looking at with the income disclosure statement, but rule of thumb is just about 80+% are going to be customers, and that's fine because that means they're seeing value in the products and services. So it doesn't make sense to push a business opportunity unless what Eric Worre says, somebody raises their hand and says, I'm looking for a business opportunity. On top of the second requirement is that person really well. So they're not just raising their hand, but you know them well and they're looking for something and they've voiced that out. And ideally, they volunteered it. That needs to be done. So that's huge. That is huge, right? And that's a great pre-qualification process that's not done in almost every single case. But anyways, that's why Eric Worre exists, to help educate people to better recognize, what's a really good approach, and for network marketers to practice a better approach. This person then says, I was smart enough to decline being recruited, but not smart enough to buy 2 universal life insurance policies. Not a financial burden for us, but I now know that it was also definitely not what we needed and way more expensive than it needed to be. Now, did they do a financial needs analysis? That's what I'm wondering. And even if they did one, would it have mattered because the person was just pushing 2 policies anyway? So that's a question. Is the financial needs analysis just a formality, or does it actually factor in what financial vehicles would help that person accomplish their goals, even if it is an IUL? Questions, answers. Where are they at? Okay, all right. Obviously, it's going to depend on the individuals and the associates and stuff. Then they said, I didn't understand just how toxic and pervasive MLMs are. Okay, that's an overgeneralization, but I get it. I come to understand that later and have been mortified ever since, and when I finally got around to looking at prices for more appropriate life insurance, term only, so why didn't you do that before you signed or did anything, is the question. I understand there's pushy salespeople, you may have been people pressured, I get it, but if you were pressured into doing something, that means you didn't have the communication skills to be able to say, let us think about it. Let's do some research and I'll get back with you, or I'll give you a time frame. Let's touch base in a couple days and I'll let you know where my head's at. There's a lot of things that you can say that tests the associate on whether or not they'll respect what your wishes and desires are. And if they don't, then it's not a good fit because they have an agenda that they're trying to push on you, and you're giving them feedback as to what you're looking for, and maybe you're not ready. And so that's where the communication comes in. But there has to be ownership of, hey, I didn't communicate firmly enough or clearly enough or directly enough what I wanted and preferred. And that's something I need to work on. And I own the fact that I didn't handle that well. That needs to be said. But that takes self-awareness, humility, responsibility. It takes some things to do that. But that's what personal development is for. I mean, are we on this earth to stay stagnant? Or are we on this earth to try to grow and learn? Right? And that's what my videos are here to do, whether anti-MLM people see that or not. Well, they probably won't because they're blinded with trying to be right and win instead of actually focusing on the truth and seeking understanding. But I mean, that is what they want to do. But that's their life. I can't control that. That's important to keep in mind. All right, we're going to continue here. This person says, I was livid. That mentor got herself a huge commission in exchange for laying on the flattery with a trowel and setting us up with something that cost us 6 times what it should have compared to the term. All right, so then you have to ask, how much of that went to commissions with regards to the IUL it looks like they got, or the Universal Life. Okay, yeah, the Universal Life, which is IUL, I'm assuming here. Yeah, definitely before you invest any of your money, you should shop around, do your research with different companies, different individuals, learn what the fees are, the commissions are, the penalties for withdrawal. I mean, the rate of return, whether it's a ceiling or a floor, or the average, or the 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year since inception rate of return. Like, there's a lot that needs to go in, and that's influenced dramatically what I actually invest in. So yeah, I think this is another case of somebody just not doing enough research on the front end because they didn't have the communication skills or maybe the analytical skills or maybe the desire to do so. And I get it. I'm not judging or punishing them. I'm just outside looking in, stating what I saw was the opportunity based on my own personal experience too of how I have fallen short or not done things the best and needed to own what that gap was. Skills gap, maturity gap, insecurities, things like that. Not fun, not sexy, but important. Then they said, I went to an actual licensed professional broker this time. So why didn't you do that the first time? Or at least the second or third time before you signed anything with WFG? Okay. Okay. Then they said, and she helped me fill out the cancellation forms to make them airtight. Her plum in this pie is getting us as clients for a different policy, but it's much smaller and more bare bones. We faxed the forms off today. We'll lose a huge chunk of the Universal Life Fund to the wildly higher than industry standard surrender charges. All right, well, there you go. There's penalties for early withdrawal. So that's what you should have researched on the front end, but that's why I do videos so people can ask questions. And if they don't get the answers they want or if the associates are defensive, those are red flags. But we'll get just over half of it back. Ooh, ouch. That's tuition cost, right? For not doing enough research and asking the right questions and communicating in such a way where you can get those. That's tuition cost. We'll be keeping that much more money every month, and most importantly, we won't be benefiting an MLM anymore. Okay, so clearly an MLM bias, which is not, again, we need to look at the bigger picture. Don't just have a focus group of one and just extrapolate that to all MLMs and be like, they're all bad. It's baby out with the bathwater type of language. So when you look at things from a case-by-case basis, from a person, team, products, and company standpoint, that takes research, that takes work, which they showed they weren't willing to do on the front end, which clearly shows why they make generalizations like that as well, that are inaccurate. Keyword inaccurate. I'll post an update if the insurance company, parentheses, used to be Transamerica, rebranded as Ivari to wash off the MLM stink briefly, but they and WFG are all owned by some umbrella corp called Aegon. Tries anything colorful to avoid canceling our policies. Edit. One other bit of story. Okay, a little bonus section here. Mentor took over our file from friend when friend quit WFG. She's since moved, and I haven't spoken to her in a while. I mean, yeah, there's turnover. I mentioned that before. There's turnover, there's attrition. It happens, especially in the financial services realm. Then they say, in retrospect, she had definitely drunk the Kool-Aid back when all this first happened, and I'm sure she's very embarrassed about the whole thing now. But I'm disappointed she didn't at least say, that package you just got set up with is garbage. You should cut and run immediately. She may not have known. right? I mean, there's a level of education that she may have known. I mean, that's giving the benefit of the doubt. If she did know, then that's on that individual and, you know, how they do business. And they're not in business anymore, for whatever reason, right? So anyways, here we go. They say, anyway, Mentor's been sending periodic form emails ever since, inviting us out to various financial planning seminars and customer appreciation events. We've never gone, as I'm positive that they're all just pitches. The broker who helped me with the extraction says WFG tries to recruit her constantly, and she's never gone either, but a colleague has, and apparently the events are fancy as Edit 2. So this chapter in our lives is effectively closed. Thank goodness. I did still want a cheaper, legitimate version of the same thing, so I went through a real insurance broker this time, and she made the entire process of getting out of the old policy much smoother. Again, when you do the research up front, the preparation that you spend will save you so much of the rework on the back end. I mean, it's amazing what research, time, and shopping around will do for you before you make a purchasing decision and sign anything. And that's what I advocate for anything, right? And you know, there is paralysis by analysis of doing too much research, right? That's why you have to identify what your needs and goals are and know, like, and trust the person, product, and company enough so that your action threshold lowers and you can make a purchasing decision because you feel comfortable with that. And that's part of that research too. And a lot of that you can get in the actual class or presentation and, you know, getting a vibe from them if it's good or bad or whatever. They said she helped me fill out the cancellation forms and send them off, and perhaps more valuable to me, she responded to all the phone calls and emails from Mentor trying to, 1, convince us to change our minds, and 2, say there was something wrong with the forms. She also advised me to put a stop payment on my account in Ivari's name, that the current shell company holdings WFG's actual insurance business in Canada, and I was glad I did when they tried to take another month of premiums early and the stop payment blocked it. Stop payment only works in one direction, so it didn't interfere with the incoming surrenders from the Universal Life Insurance funds. All told, we lost about 2/3 of the money we've been paying in premiums since 2015. Not actually the priciest lesson we've ever learned, but certainly the sharpest. And this was originally in, you know, it was about a half a year ago. So yeah, there's a number of years where they lost money. And I call that tuition costs. You didn't understand what the fees were, the early cancellation fees. You didn't understand what the commission structures were of the individual. I mean, what about the rate of return, the ceiling and the floors, and the past performance of the actual vehicle, and what your other options were with other companies, regardless if WFG provided those quotes or not, right? And so there was not a lot of research done up front. I see that as a big, big opportunity for them to take responsibility for, which they wouldn't, because they did no wrong. And that's part of being an unreasonable person, is you don't want to admit any personal wrongness, because why would you? You didn't do anything wrong. Whereas I would look at it, it's not about right or wrong, it's about what you could have done better, right? What you did was okay, but it wasn't the best, right? There was a better option, and that is not being focused on at all in these conversations, which is why I draw light to these. And then when I do, people are like, well, you're just blaming the person. I'm not blaming anyone. The problem is that they're not taking any responsibility. I'm saying, can you take at least 1%? Right? You're putting 100% on the actual company and the person that you worked with, and you're not taking any yourself. You either allowed something to happen or you pushed and pulled something in order for it to happen. All right? That needs to be owned. Period. If you have a mature, reasonable, more objective mindset, then that's what you would do. And that's what adults do. Kids blame and point fingers, all right, without looking the fact that they have 3 pointing back with them, or if they do this, they have the whole arm connected to them. All right, well, that concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click the like button if you did, share this video with somebody that would benefit from it, and most importantly, check out the links in the description below so you can read this story, the comments underneath it, gain some more perspective, learn about best practices and mistakes to avoid in a little bit more detail. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video.